Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I've got a viewer mail right here from somebody who's watching. I appreciate everybody who writes in. It's always handy to do that. And I think you ask a lot of questions, and hopefully they're questions people want to hear discussed and answered, and that's always fun. At some point, I'll figure out with StreamYard. I don't love the idea, and I can do it. There's nothing inherently wrong about this. I know other channels do it from time to time, but actually make it like a call-in show where people can call into the live streams and talk for a few minutes, and there it goes. And I'm sure there would be some dumbassery in all that, but I would like to be able to do that. Unfortunately, I mean, the way it kind of is done now to me feels like poor man's ghetto way of doing it. That's probably a terrible way to say that phrase. Anyway, it is you just send out the link and then people jump in and you kind of add them to the stream. I would prefer something where it's more audio based, where it could just be literally like a call-in show. That would be good. But anyway, I have to look at this. To this question, the question is relatively simple. Hey Perch, I hate blockbots. I think creators who use them are cowardly. And when a creator uses a blockbot, I immediately lose all respect for them. It is not fair for somebody who I have never talked to, never interacted with, didn't even know existed, to find out that I've been blocked by them. Whenever I see that, I immediately block back, I write down that creator's name, and I never purchase anything by that creator again. It's not fair to punish me by having an association with somebody that this creator doesn't like. I think they should be banned. If I was a publisher, I would fire any creator that uses them. What do you think? All right. First off, by the way, I appreciate that the person took a stance. I like that in this mail. You're like, and this is what I believe. Here it is, all the way. I appreciate that. That's very nice. I so I take a different view, but I want to make sure you understand why everybody takes a different view. But I don't know if this is a libertarian view. I don't know what if you want to put it in political terms. I don't know where this would fall. But I believe people should have the right to choose what they want to do. It's social media. This isn't this is the creator. It's not the company's official account. It's not anything else. But I believe that if the creator wants to manage their social media any way they want, if they want to just go to it and post pictures of food and never talk about comics whatsoever, I think they have the right to do that. Now, listen to what I'm saying very carefully. I think they should have the right to do that. I don't think that's smart. I think that's self-defeating. I think if I was trying to assemble a group of people to market a comic, or if I was trying to get a bunch of people who I thought were going to help me to actually promote something, or I was putting some money in the pot in order to help promote stuff. I mean, I don't know, whatever form that takes. I would not work with somebody who had an insane Twitter feed. And we're talking about creators here, writers, artists. If somebody's on staff, meaning they're a full-time employee, then I still tend to fall in the realm of, you should be allowed to do what you want on your social media feed. However, if somebody is a representative of the company, you can't make the company look bad in the process. In many ways, I'm describing, consequence culture. If you go on social media and you post crazy shit, I don't think I have the right as a company to say, you don't get to do that. But I do think I have the right as a company to say, I don't plan on working with you anymore. If you're doing something that's making kind of the company look bad, then, I will just, cease future work. I don't think companies have the right to go in and say, we get to dictate what you do with your social media account. But I do think the company has a right to come in and say, if you do something insane in your social media account, then we're not going to work with you any further. And by the way, those sound really similar, don't they? I'm saying I don't think you should dictate somebody's social media account. However, if you do something that humiliates, embarrasses, disparages the company in some form or fashion, then I think there's a right to terminate your employment. This is the battle that's raging right now, and it's an incredibly fine line. And unfortunately, what disparages the company tends to be a moving target as well. All this, by the way, I have a further view on all this, which is to say, social media is a trap. If you're on it and you're using it, you're pretty much just wandering voluntarily into a quagmire of mess. So either you have to be very confident that, whatever happens, happens. And if it winds up negatively impacting you, then so be it. Or you should get off of it if you don't want to deal with that headache. To me, it becomes a risk reward thing. The risks of just being bothered with a bunch of nonsense in social media is not worth the reward of saying crazy shit on social media. But a lot of people are addicted to social media. It's a core part of their life. It's the first thing they do when they wake up. It's the last thing they do before they go to sleep. It represents a core aspect of who they are. There's some people like me, for example. I've traveled internationally and I've done things. I've sometimes been in cases where I don't have easy access to the internet, or I'm over in Shanghai, for example, about 2 years ago, over in Shanghai for a couple of weeks. And I don't want to deal with, I'm protecting the data plan that I got for traveling remotely. And I'm not going to waste that nonsense on social media. So I just don't bother. And I save that for my friends and family and sending photos back to my kids and that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to use it to check Twitter. That would be a waste of my time. So for me, it's very easy to just flip the switch and not bother with it. But for several, it's a core part of their life. I've done videos on this before. I don't think blockbots are a good idea, and I don't think they're a good idea. I think I think the person who is harmed the most with a blockbot is the person using it. And I think the person who wrote this in, you identified exactly why. If you're using a block bot, you are going to block people who have never interacted with you and potentially never even heard of you. And when somebody discovers that, oh, I've been blocked, and you never had that interaction, it creates a dislike, a anger and a dislike that is toxic, is hardened, and basically makes it incredibly hard for you to overcome. You basically create enemies. And this is the fallacy of the block bot that I think especially, and keep in mind, by the way, I think a lot of people used block bots and didn't fully understand what they were getting themselves into. I think that they back in about 2018, there was this big kind of sweeping, the spooky threat that a bunch of people heard, which was, oh my God, there are hateful trolls out there and they're just mobbing you. I mean, I can't even sleep. The stuff was quite hysterical, that I'm just getting barraged by thousands of things. And these are awful, horrible people. And we created these block bots to help make your social media peaceful again. That's how it was sold. Now, of course, I mean, anyone who's really being honest with themselves know that that turned out to be shit. Because even if back in 2018, a bunch of evil trolls were attacking you and you ran a block bot and it's like, oh, wow, now I'm in a happy bubble here. I don't have anyone attack me. I feel really good about it. How long before, people started coming in again? How long before you had to deal with bullshit again? Was it weeks, days, months? But I guarantee you're right back in it now, unless you're continuously using block bots to, create a very fictionalized version of the internet for you. Now, my comment would be, if you're going through all that trouble, why are you on social media in the first place? What is the point? Because if you're having to spend that much effort curating it, again, risk versus reward. I mean, that's more trouble than I want to go through. Why would I bother? But the problem is, and this is what I think at least some people have started to realize, that what seemed like a really easy thing, like, hey, and I got several of these messages from, quote unquote, well-meaning concern trolls who would tell me, hey, this is how you make your social media peaceful. Hateful Nazis are coming at you, so if you run this, then you'll get rid of all those mean, nasty people that are making your life a living hell, making other people's lives a living hell. And that sounded, I don't say good. I mean, sorry, when I got that mail, it sounded like bullshit to me, but to a lot of people, it sounded good. What, you're telling me I can have a more reasonable, sanitized Twitter? And you're telling me that I can also kind of, side effect punish some people who are truly lousy? Yeah, sign me up. The problem is, these bots and these lists became extremely dodgy. That people got added to it based on just a disagreement that somebody might have had, not any kind of real behavior that was a problem. But when they got used, and this is what we're seeing now, there are true angry. I mean, you turned a neutral party into a enemy by doing that. There is something very psychological. And I do believe, by the way, it's a trick on Twitter's part. I think Twitter intentionally makes the "you're blocked" message sound as nasty as possible. And they do that because they know if they really make it feel personal, you are going to turn around and create another account so you can get past the block, so you can see what's actually being said, or maybe screw with the person in a different way. And Twitter, part of their entire value, how they're judged as a company, how their business is rated, is by signups. How do you get more signups? Well, you encourage people to go and create another email account and sign up again. And so this block message is not like, hey, you can't see it. I mean, put it this way. Twitter, if they wanted to, could show nothing. Like when you searched or saw his name, they could easily just hide it completely. They could hide that name. They could just make it, invisible. You would eventually figure out something's going on if you can't see it at all. But the fact that they throw up a "you're blocked," it's them going, hey, this guy blocked you. You gonna let him get away with that? You're not gonna let him get away with it, are you? Go fuck with him. That's what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. It's all part of that inevitable plan. So the people who run these lists, they are playing into Twitter's hands. All they're doing is making Twitter money. That is, every time you run a block bot, you're helping Twitter make more cash. That's what you're doing, and you're creating a lot of enemies out of people who, I probably don't even know you. I don't think that's a good idea. That said, long-winded way of answering your question. I still don't think I can be on board with. I think they're dumb. I think they're self-defeating. I don't use block bots. I think they're bad. I have a very simple block policy, which is try not to block anyone. And if somebody comes at me continuously, and there's zero reason to be gained, yeah, then I'll block somebody. But they got to work on it. I mean, people there should be no illusions. But the other thing is, yeah, if I see that I'm blocked, I block the person in return. Why? Because too many people from behind the block have used it as a way to throw rocks over the fence on all sides. There's been people from CG that have done that. There have been people from whatever the ACG, is that anti-CG? I don't know, whatever the different groups are. Lots of people have done that. They like to block and they like to screw with you behind the block. So at least I make it a little harder for them. But even then, I recognize I'm playing Twitter's game. The person's just going to go create a new account, look around it. That's what people do. It's a stupid game. Because overall, social media is a stupid game. But all that said, I would rather live in a world where people are making those, bad choices because I think it should be their choice to make. Now, again, where it gets dodgy is certainly if I work for Marvel and I start posting a bunch of, I don't know, just like I think all the police should be murdered. If you start posting crazy shit like that, then I do think Marvel comes in and goes, all right, yeah, I'm not working with you. You're nuts. And why? Because your social media account is toxic and terrible. And, you can have freedom of speech. You can certainly have freedom of speech to do that, but you can't represent the company and say crazy shit like that. I agree. I think companies should have that right. I think people should have that right. But it's an extremely fine line and it can be abused. I don't deny it. But I think the second you go in there and start saying you can and can't do that from a company perspective, that's a much worse road to go down. If a company starts making rules saying you can't use block bots, if you use block bots, you can't use them. Sounds good, but it also sounds like the camel's nose under the tent, if you will, to more things of the company trying to compel somebody to do something. And frankly, if you do believe, for example, that DC has a anti-conservative agenda at place and they're trying to push things, why couldn't DC say no block bots? And by the way, anyone who supports a Republican is immediately fired. Some of you might argue that policy is already in place. But my point is, I don't think companies should get involved in that. And sometimes that means we live with consequences we don't like. That's kind of the way I come down on it. So I don't know. That's not a feel-good answer, but that's my answer to you. I do, like I said, I think block bots are absolutely 100% damaging to the people who use them. I think, again, YOLO, you can do whatever you want. Always, you can do whatever you want. That's kind of the whole point. But if your goal is to build an audience, if your goal is to, reach out to people. If your goal is to do all those things, then blockbots have a tendency to be counter to your goal. And in fairness, because I'm friends with many people on Twitter who have run blockbots in the past. That's their choice to make. Some people come to me like, you should disown them. I'm not going to do that. I've said my piece on it. People know what it is. I mean, again, I believe everybody has the right to choose what they want to do with their social media account. But I know for a fact that some of my friends got in on this, did this kind of early on, like I said, a couple of years ago, are now kind of recognizing that maybe that was a mistake, but also kind of hate social media in general at this point and just kind of wish it would disappear. Like the amount of people who kind of would celebrate if Twitter's servers just accidentally got all erased and the service is just gone. Yeah, there's a decent amount of people who just like go outside and look up at the sky, kind of like Shawshank Redemption, and go, thank you. It's a glorious day. Anyway, thank you very much for the mail. Hope that helps, and thanks for listening.